Hey, I didn't know he spoke Amharic. That's pretty
And
dope.
There you go.
Wow, that's very impressive. I feel bad because my French is horrible, so I can't even try to be a bridge.
no?
Oh,
Shit. Zavre masking.
this is so cool.
Welcome everyone. Raisa, how you doing? I'll call you. I forgot. I was preparing
Yeah.
for stuff today. I will definitely reach out to you. Benita, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
You good? Jamima?
I'm good.
Laurent? Wow, we're already at 10. Okay, we'll get started right away, then the other people can tune up later. Pamela, Yvonne, I saw you before. You were with us before.
I'm still defrosting.
Okay, you're still there. All right. If you guys can try to have your video on, I know it's Zoom and it's whatever, but it's just hard when somebody's presenting and it's just blank screens. So we would definitely like to see your beautiful faces there. Like Benita, I don't think I've ever seen you with your video on one time in these meetings here. So it's good. Junior, is Vince coming through today, or is it just usually told me she had an exam tomorrow?
Yeah, Vincent is joining right now. He's about joining right now.
Okay. All right. So we'll get started here. I think most of you guys were here on Friday. What we'll just do is we'll just do a quick recap of Friday, and then what we're gonna do is just go through another historical section. It's still Black History Month. We're gonna do a little bit of history, tie strategy, or see how my strategy has played out in different areas of Black history, seeing the importance of that and everything like that. I'm gonna introduce you guys a guest speaker. We were supposed to have one on Friday. They bailed, but we're here. We have Giftii Girma, multi-talented, wears a lot of hats, just all-star, who's gonna come talk to us today about strategic planning from different communities and incorporating a diversity lens, kind of, when you're thinking about strategic planning. I think that's important for us. Congo's diverse country. There's all sorts of different Black people in there. Africa is very diverse. Even our group there, we have people from the Caribbean and okay, somebody's talking there. And like as we're kind of progressing, moving forward, a lot of the work that we're gonna have to be doing, we gotta be informed as well about what that looks like, what that means, how we can also apply that in our settings here. So that's the kind of general overview for today. So I know I caught some of you guys sleeping at the end of Papa Ndembe or other people. Other people look so bored too. But man, when you go through like just a PowerPoint over Zoom and it's just strategic planning, definitions and details, it's dry. It's boring, it's dry. I give that to you. But let's just try to recap a little bit. Let's see what people caught on to, what people retained, or what was important to people. Yeah, we'll go from there. Lavi, you were there for a little bit. You kind of left a little bit early, but can you tell us kind of a little bit what you caught from that session there?
Honestly speaking, I was there just by my skin, but not with my mind. I was really in pain, and I just had to to show my face. So I'm sorry.
This is why I'm so disappointed, Lavi. You know. It's all good. Who else was there? Pamela, lover of PowerPoint presentations. What did you think of, or what did you catch off of a Friday session? Are you home yet? Settled?
Yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi is kind of spotty, so I'm trying to find a spot.
Okay, no worries.
Where it's stable. I remember watching the video, and it was like a Black person's perspective on Northern American racism versus like a white cop, and we had a discussion about that. And I also remember, I think it was last session where Alyssa was talking about strategic planning and having a plan even for your plan.
Okay, that's something we remember, having a plan for your plan. What's something else on the strategic planning tip that we kind of caught? Let's go to Raisa next.
So you asked last time, you asked us like what kind of programs we could put in our center, and I mentioned something about giving youth or helping youth getting a job, resumes and all that. We talked about something about like that. Yeah, that's all I remember because I slept.
Ah, t'as même pas honte. Hallelujah. Okay, it's all good. Vince, you were there too. Talk to us about the things you retained there.
I remember she talked lots about planning ahead. So not just going, but bringing with you ideas that like so that if something happens, you'll be prepared for it. So and then we're also talking about how SSGO is going and like things like that.
Okay, not bad, not bad. We have Cristiano now. Felicia, you're here. How you doing? You're
Hi,
earlier
I'm good.
than I thought.
Forever to get this mute off.
Sorry?
It takes forever for me to get this mute button off.
Oh,
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. No video today? I know everybody goes, video, but please.
For a second, okay?
Please keep them on so that we feel like we're talking to people. It's hard. Hey, Amaya. Hi, Gecko.
Letter, yeah. Okay, Maya. Bye-bye. Yeah, I'm doing good. Good family day long weekend. Yeah, it was good.
We didn't ask you that.
Oh.
Come on, Felicia.
Just in case you wanted to know, there you go. It was great.
No, thank you. It's good. But just more about the strategic planning. Like if I was like, what did you guys retain from the session that Alyssa did?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay. It was just a breakdown of how strategic plans are like built and how they're formed. So it was good. I liked all the slides that she gave us, and like the information was like I said, my work did a huge one like a couple years ago. So it's like sometimes when I hear that word, I'm like, ooh, because it was a lot. It's a lot of work, but it's good. Like once you get one in place, and it's good and ever changing, right? So that's the one thing I know from ours that we did at work. It's just ever changing and
I like that, ever changing. What can somebody tell me about an emergent strategic plan and a deliberate one? You said something. Did anybody catch that? Or was it Friday? And we gotta review this PowerPoint again next Friday so that some of these points stick. Because Felicia just really mentioned something there, and that was something that Alyssa spent a decent amount of time talking about. Okay, I'll answer. There's strategic plans. You guys remember this part here. You can plan, like when we're talking about having a plan for your plan, there's a type of planning that is where that's the deliberate kind of strategic planning, where there's space for that. You have a backup plan for everything. You have redundancies. You try to think through everything. You try to think through different aspects of your project, how different parts of your project can help enforce, like help strengthen other parts of it, how they can cross connect and do that kind of thing. But also moving forward, there's the kind of plan that you can't always prepare for, the kind of emergent plan, the kind you have to be responsive for, respond to. Is that ringing a bell now? Anybody remember that? Laurent? Ah, man. Okay, we're definitely going through that PowerPoint again. Maybe I'll send it out and then I will catch it. So are PowerPoint slides just so dry? Is it just really hard to retain? Pam, I know already how you feel about this slide. But Junior, it's anything I'm kind of repeating there because I know Alyssa said it in her kind of way, but we did talk about it afterwards, somewhat like on the technical side of things.
What I really remember from the presentation. I remember the different like deliberate and like strategic planning. Like I remember different ways you can put it down. I remember SWOT analysis, strength, weaknesses. I don't remember the other two though.
Thank you.
Impact gaps, canvas.
Yes.
And vision statement. And yeah, that's what I remember.
Is he the youngest one here? I think he might be the youngest one here. He was dropping it. Yes, clap it out, clap it out. So impact gaps, that's something we do ahead of times when we're doing, probably do it after you do some of your visioning to get an idea of what's happening out there in the community. You do an impact gap analysis. The SWOT analysis he was talking about, you can do that before or after. Typically, it's done as an evaluative tool so that to evaluate the initiatives you kind of put forth. You would do like a SWOT analysis after that. But thank you, makes that session well worth it. So good. We're gonna keep bringing it up. I know Jamima and Benita, you weren't there. So we're gonna try to send you the PowerPoint we did on Friday. We'll send that out to you guys so that you guys can be prepared. But it was just looking through, you know how we talk about leadership, we talk about tools in that toolkit that you can access and help you go through. So strategic planning is one of those tools. So we talked about your organization, registering your organization, setting up an organization as a tool, as a leadership tool, is something that you can use to impact your community. But once you have that organization, orienting it, like it's having a ship and then the, is it the wheel, the steering wheel? I don't know. Whatever's on a big ship that you use to control it, you know, you like that's kind of how you can think of strategic plan, orienting yourself, charting a course, and then actually making it there. So good. We're gonna transition a little bit now. We're gonna go into a little bit of our history piece. I kept the slideshow short. It's like 5 slides. So, you know, Pam, you know, we good. So very short there. It's just bringing back, who remembers what we were talking about, change leadership versus change management. It's been a theme that we've been kind of talking about over and over in this thing. So we're gonna take a look at a couple of historical examples, and we're gonna take a look at how change has been managed in the past, certain responses that have happened, and certain trends and themes that come up again and again. So right now, as you guys know, we have a friend of mine, Giftii. Giftii is from Ethiopia. She's going to be helping us go through this session here. And it's actually, I'm going to start sharing my screen. It's actually quite interesting. And I think Papa Ndembe, who's lived in Ethiopia for a long time, can also speak to this. It's very interesting, the common connection or how the history has, it's not a similar history, but the common threads that have been relevant in Ethiopia and Congo and kind of worldwide as well. We're gonna try to take a look at that quickly, briefly, to give us a historical grounding, to see the connections there. And then we're gonna go into a strategic plan discussion that Giftii is gonna lead there. We good? All right, sit back, want you guys all to pay attention, and we'll go from there. And Papa Ndembe, if you have something to share, go ahead and feel comfortable sharing it whenever.
Okay, let's proceed, then we will have a time to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm just finding a way to share what I need to share here.
Good.
Sorry, guys. Who's in the chat? Okay. Social entrepreneurship, no. I think it's this one. Okay. Congo Kingdom, and well, it's not one kingdom in Ethiopia. Ethiopia has a longer kind of history there. But what's really interesting about Congo and Ethiopia is this. In the 1600s, so 1600s means right around the 15th century, sorry. In the 15th century, sorry, 1600, I am so confused and tired. Lavi, can you help me? What am I trying to say? In the 16th century, that would be the 1500s, right? Yes, okay. So in the 1500s, which is the 16th century, there was a kingdom in Congo, the Congo Kingdom, and there was a reunited kind of kingdom in Ethiopia, a Solomonic Empire in Ethiopia. And in the 16th century at that time, it was a Christian kingdom in Central Africa and an older, much more established Christian kingdom in Ethiopia. But at the time, because the Spanish world, the Portuguese world was the head of, it wasn't France, it wasn't England, it was really the Iberian Peninsula was the superpowers of the world. Both kingdoms had relationships with Portugal. Both kingdoms were able to send emissaries to the Vatican and stuff. But in this time, like as we were connecting with this kind of world there, it's a different kind of leadership that was expressed in Ethiopia compared to Congo. So as you know, Congo was seen as, or the Congo Kingdom was seen as a Bantu kingdom. We talked about the Bantu people before. The Bantu people are throughout Africa or the southern portion of like Africa. And in and around 1390, we were able to create a kingdom in Central Africa. Ethiopia, on the other hand, is much, much older. So there was an Aksumite kingdom there at around 80 BC. So before Christ was even born, that region had an empire, had a kingdom. You guys know about the story about the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon? So in the Bible, there's a story of the Queen of Sheba who went to visit King Solomon and went back to her kingdom, had a king, had a son, and then from then on, they say in Ethiopia, they had almost 2,500-year-long history in that region of continuous history there. And by the time the 1600s came around, they were a well-established Christian kingdom. The Bantu, on the other hand, were a migratory people. So in around that time, in the Middle Ages and stuff, we were still migrating. As you know, officially, they say that we originated from the Cameroon region, so kind of the Nigerian Cameroon border, and then came down all the way into South Africa. There's other histories, other people point to other points of origin, but officially it's the Cameroons. Now, the big change that happened here, there's even a paper that I'll send to you guys, you can find it on JSTOR, where it's a comparison of what happened to these two kingdoms once the slave trade kind of happened. So as you guys know, the Congo Kingdom survived, as you see the date here, until 1914. But it survived as a complete and former shell of itself. In the Middle Ages, they were able to fight a little bit. They had wars. We were able to beat off the Portuguese one time, able to beat the Dutch another time. But overall, because of our participation in the slave trade, they say, because of all of the, I can say, instability that was brought as a result of our participation in the slave trade, our kingdom pretty much thoroughly collapsed. Ethiopia, on the other hand, was able to keep going. So whether that's keep their integrity of their territory intact, and they were in a region where there was Muslims. The Ottoman Empire was really strong there. The Portuguese, the Christians were coming around and trying to take power as well. But there's a distinction that kind of happened there. They were able to fight like pretty big battles and win against them and maintain this kind of historical kind of line going. Now keep the religious Christian piece in your head. It's going to be relevant again moving forward as we look at other comparisons. This year, oh man, it copied and pasted incorrectly. Can you guys see that properly or not really? this map here. Okay. We're gonna end up coming back to this. Okay, so if you guys can see this, this is, I can't see it. I'm gonna put you guys on the side here. All right, so in about 1896, the Ethiopians fought a big war against the Italian Empire at the time, and were able to win. It's a big battle called the Battle of, I think, Adwa. And I used to hear about this. I once heard about this battle from an old Congolese person, and he told me at that battle, oh, some Congolese were able to walk over there and participate. I thought this guy was completely crazy, completely nuts, until I started researching and I looked up this one thing. So Ethiopia was able to stay together. Italy wanted it in 1896. Ethiopia was able to fight and win. Italy under Mussolini came back again, like maybe 40 years later during World War II, and wanted to get their, or wanted to increase their empire. They were in Somalia at the time, and they still remembered the loss they had to Ethiopia at the time, and they wanted to reclaim this territory. And this is one of the first times we have this kind of interaction between Congolese and Ethiopians. So I told you the story about the Congolese guy who told me that Congolese walked to Ethiopia and fought there. So it wasn't in World War I or the Battle of Adwa, but there is an interesting case here in World War II. There's something called the Siege of Sayo or Saio. Papa Ndembe, you can help me pronounce it properly, or Lavi. And so this is a really interesting battle where the Congolese Force Publique, so the colonial army at the time, was the only army the Belgians had during World War II. So Germany ran over Belgium, ran over France. So like free Belgium was Congo, and like free France was other Congo and stuff. And so you see here that during World War II, Belgium still wanted to participate and help in the war. They organized Congolese to go off and fight in Ethiopia during World War II, and most of the time they just kind of walked. So you'll see here, this is a map of them getting there. So the parts that's in dark red, they were on the river. So they took the boat. They were on the rail for a little bit, and then back on motor and the boat. It only took them 5 days to get into Ethiopia. That's it. And when they got into Ethiopia, they were in charge of fighting a particular group. I think that this battle is so famous for Congolese. They beat those Italians so bad. I think we took 60 generals hostage. We ended up like it was a bigger battle. It wasn't just this battle right here, but this is like a one intervention there. And it's something well remembered in Congo. It's one of like our biggest military win, and it's like a source of pride there for us there. So it's not that we participated in the first one, the Battle of Adwa, but once you see this map here, you see it's not actually that far. If you can like take your a canoe essentially and be able to somehow snake your way from Kinshasa to Ethiopia in 5 days back in the 1940s, it's pretty impressive. So at the time, the leader of Ethiopia was a guy named Haile Selassie, who was big in the Pan-Africanist movement, and he remembered the Congolese. Come on. He remembered the Congolese coming to Ethiopia that one time there. And when we were having a crisis in the 1960s, so as you guys know, in the 1960s, Congo got its independence, and almost immediately, just like that, our independence was gone, was taken away. Multinational companies had a lot of interest in the Congo. We didn't have a much strength of our own. Remember, change leadership versus change management. Change leadership side of things, we were okay. Change management side of things, we were not that strong. Remember, it was the Belgium military general came through to our army and told them that before independence equals after independence. So we had to reach out for help there. And the big person to help us was a guy by the name of Haile Selassie, who had a lot of weight in Africa. He's a bit more controversial, I hear, in Ethiopia, but in Africa as a whole, he's one of the big founding fathers of the African Union. And when Congo needed troops, it was hard for us to get troops because it was a political game. So if the United States sent troops, then it's like Russia was going to send troops, and it was going to end up becoming a bigger problem during like that Cold War era. So it was hard for us to find countries that were willing to send us troops. So Ethiopia at the time was willing to send us a grand total of like 3,500 troops. It was called Operation Teko, and they were stationed in and around Lubumbashi at the time. So I think people still kind of remember that. I think I have a cousin who's like part Ethiopian or some from, I think, being mixed up or in this time period here. So the next thing I kind of wanted to bring up, the other connection is with Haile Selassie, like what he really did during that time. So I talked about the UN connection. What he also did was pretty important in the African Union. So when we talked about Congolese independence, we talked about the Belgian professor who proposed a plan for Congo to get gradual independence within 30 years. And then there was another group of people who wanted independence right away. And the group of people who wanted independence right away ended up winning the day. On the international level, in the African Union, the same kind of debate was playing out. Okay, so there was Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana, who led Ghana, the first country to get independence in Africa, the first country that was colonized to further get independence, wanted all African states to turn into like the United States of Africa right away. He said, what's the point of waiting? Like, we got to figure this out. And then there was another group of people like Ufwet Boigny from Ivory Coast, who said, no. We got to slow things down here a bit. As you guys know, the way the French countries gained their independence, they gained political independence, but that monetary independence wasn't really there for them. Their economies were still tied to France. So for them, very fast independence wasn't going to work. So the person who came in the middle was able to kind of mediate between the two sides there was Haile Selassie. And because of a lot of the work that he did in that space, getting people together, being involved in even other politics, like he was speaking out a lot for Congo when the international community wasn't speaking about Congo, since he had just kind of that, he was just the statesman of the time, the African statesman of the time. When he said a word about Congo, it had what he kind of played like that Nelson Mandela role at the time. So when there was mediation to be had between different leaders, they would usually look towards him, revert towards him. The other way that there is a connection here is if we take a look at kind of the historical progression of things. Who's heard of the Rastafarian movement? No one? Not a soul. Come
Not
on.
even me. Nope.
I have, but I don't know anything about it.
You never heard them Rastafarian, whatever?
Well,
Okay.
us Ethiopians know about the Rastafarians, so.
Okay, Ethiopians know. So, okay, maybe complete me. I'm gonna just say a little bit. If I miss anything, I'll just add in more. So this is a movement kind of started in and around the 1930s. There was a prophecy by Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey, a Pan-Africanist from the Caribbean, who wanted to bring Africans back home, bring them back. And he prophesied that a king in Africa was going to be born. And in and around the time he spoke this, Haile Selassie, I don't know if he was born or if he was coronated, I'm not sure, but coronated or born, probably coronated if it was the 1930s. So Haile Selassie was coronated. I'm pretty sure Rastafari or Ras is like his name in there somewhere, the first part of it. But essentially, when we look at the first slide where we saw the religious thing, there was the Bantu Christian kingdom in Congo and the Solomonic kingdom in Ethiopia. Rastafarians, some of them, not all of them, have a claim towards that kind of biblical identity, biblical truth. So they see themselves as also being descendants of or an offshoot. It's really controversial, but they kind of essentially see themselves as the inheritors of the Bible as well. So when you have a Solomonic king there, they see themselves under him. Now, how that idea or that thought ended up perforating into the beliefs of former slaves came from a lady in Congo. She was born in, I think, the 16 something Congo. Who knows a lady by the name of Kimpa Vita? Raisa, Daniel, Sam. Raisa, you didn't raise your hand? You don't know Kimpa Vita? Kimpa Vita is called the mother of African Revolution. Daniel, est-ce que tu peux dire un mot peut-être sur Kimpa Vita pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas? T'es sur mute.
Voilà. Kimpa Vita, comme on l'appelle, c'est une dame déjà qui est née en République démocratique du Congo, qui porte bien évidemment ce nom-là. Déjà, c'est comme Jeanne d'Arc. On parle des Jeanne d'Arc pour le côté français, et du côté des Noirs, on parle bien de Kimpa Vita parce que c'est, par précision, elle est née, comme Ike le disait, c'était en 1684 précisément, et elle est morte le 2 juillet, je pense, 1706. C'est comme ça que l'on a étudié en histoire. Et bien, c'était pendant le temps, elle portait un nom portugais parce que c'était comme le royaume Congo qui s'étendait jusqu'en Angola. Et c'est comme ça que la révolution est partie de cette bastion jusqu'à grandir un peu partout en Afrique centrale, à attraper aussi l'Afrique australe. Elle s'est battue aux côtés des hommes efficaces. Selon l'histoire qu'on a étudiée à l'école, c'était une dame qui a révolutionné beaucoup de secteurs. Par exemple, il y a même un groupe de féministes, un courant de féministes qui pense que c'est une dame qui a porté la voix des femmes au plus haut niveau, alors que la femme en ce temps-là n'avait pas ce poids-là, n'avait aucun mot à dire au milieu des hommes, mais qui me invite à s'élever. Et elle a amené avec elle plusieurs hommes qui l'ont suivi dans sa révolte, et beaucoup de choses se sont passées avec elle. Donc, pour moi, c'est ce que je peux dire à propos de Kimpa Vita.
Et puis, côté religion, je vais résumer ce que tu as dit, mais tu as parlé de la partie politique, tu as parlé de la politique socio-économique peut-être, mais aussi l'aspect religieux. Qu'est-ce qu'elle a fait sur ces points-là?
Oui, c'était une forme, comme on appelle en français, c'était comme une forme de syncrétisme. Donc, le syncrétisme de catholicisme et la tradition, donc la religion traditionnelle du Congo. Donc, pour elle, c'était comme, aujourd'hui, on dirait que c'était un culte œcuménique. Elle voulait réunir nos valeurs traditionnelles associées à la religion que les gens ont amené de l'extérieur. Elle voyait du bien dans la religion qui venait avec les colons qui étaient en train d'entrer, parce que le Congo a été découvert, entre guillemets, par les Portugais, d'Irokao, donc qui étaient en train d'entrer avec cette religion. Elle trouvait du bien dans cette religion, mais aussi elle trouvait du bien dans la tradition. Alors, elle voulait réunir le royaume Congo d'abord par le syncrétisme de la religion et amener plusieurs personnes à trouver comment on dit, des points similaires entre la religion que les Blancs apportaient et la religion traditionnelle. Parce qu'il faut ici préciser une chose, que les Blancs, comme ça, les Blancs, quand ils sont venus, nous ont présenté Jésus-Christ, mais le peuple noir connaissait déjà Dieu. mais l'histoire de Jésus était inconnue au milieu du peuple noir, mais il y avait déjà un Dieu avec grand D que le peuple noir connaissait. Et Kimpambita était parmi ces dames qui connaissaient Dieu, mais quand ils ont amené Jésus, c'était comme une révélation pour elle. Alors, elle cherchait ce juste milieu entre la religion de Jésus qu'on a menée et la religion traditionnelle qui était là. Parce que vous savez ce qui s'est passé avec le catholicisme et qu'ils ont trouvé, par exemple, des choses qu'on appelle les amulettes, les statuettes au milieu de nos ancêtres. Alors, ils voulaient échanger, par exemple, le chapelet avec l'amulette ou la statuette avec la statue de la Vierge Marie. Alors, Kimpambit essayait de ne pas raser du revers de la main tout ce qui était traditionnel parce que selon le blanc qui était venu, il présentait tout ce qui était traditionnel comme étant mauvais, comme étant la sorcellerie, comme étant de l'animisme, comme étant beaucoup de choses. Alors Kimpambit essayait de résister de ce côté-là pour dire non, il y a aussi du bien dans notre culture, dans notre religion. Alors Kimpambit s'est battu de ce côté-là. Donc à propos de la religion, c'est ce que j'ai à dire.
We got to clap for Daniel. Daniel gives the best answers ever. So I'm going to resume a bit. That was excellent. So Kimpa Vita is one of the most significant women in Congolese history. And that's because she lived in a time when there was a lot of change. So as Daniel was talking about, it was a time when the Portuguese came in, Congolese culture went down. We were adopting more Europeanized culture. Kimpavita came in a time in the middle of that, was able to have an effect, so she was the Joan of Arc of Congo, essentially. She was a young girl who was able to lead. So she was a military leader, able to fight against people. She was a social leader, as in she was able to reclaim some of the old, so she thought the nobles had lost their way, they weren't doing things properly. She reclaimed some of that pride, I can say. And on the religious end, she was one of the first to try to synchronize what was African and what was coming from abroad. And she did it in a very interesting way. She claimed it, essentially. She claimed a lot of things. She even claimed to be possessed by a man. So she's like, if I have the spirit of a man, I can lead. She was saying a lot of interesting things that true, false, we don't know, but her impact is undeniable. In a time when everything was going sideways, she was able to regalvanize people. Now, her impact is such that a lot of the slaves who were leaving Congo at the time and going to the Caribbean started to adopt her beliefs. So started to see, so they were already Christians from 14, I don't know what. So as they were trying to explain their experience and explain their position, moving into the Caribbean, moving into North and South America, they kept a lot of their religious practices with them. And that idea of we're people of the book, we're this, that idea that grew later, much later, into Rastafarianism, they give her the credit of being one of the first people to spew that out. It's not giving it credence, true or false, but giving like that, like just kind of the historical chain of events. So there were, if you look up the Marooners or Maroon communities in Jamaica, if you look up a lot of the other rebellions that happened in Caribbean and in North America too, a lot of them, like the Congolese ones especially, a lot of them were offshoot followers of Kimpavita, and that ended up growing into some of the phenomenon that we see here. So that's one interesting connection we wanted to wrap up and end up with there. Thank you, Daniel, for that. But it's really to show you here that our peoples are connected. Our people have been knowing each other, have worked together, have faced similar challenges, and about knowing that we're not that different from them, not knowing that we face similar problems. And if we put our, if we try to strategize, if we try to learn from those lessons in the past, it kind of helps us out not repeat those same kind of mistakes. So we will stop it there with my slide presentation. We won't go too much into Bantu migrations and any of that. But who was watching the news? Who saw the president of Congo go to Egypt and tell the president of Egypt, he's like, yo, we helped build those pyramids. We came from here. Who saw that? Oh, Daniel. Yeah, that's really interesting. That's another way. Oh, Raisa as well. That's another way for us to reclaim some of our stories, reclaim and validate some of the stories that our parents, grandparents told us that may not align directly with what history tells us. So we're good. I did really good. It's not even 6:50 yet. Any questions? Any Papa Ndembe, did you want to add anything? Daniel, si tu veux parler, allez-y.
C'est par rapport à ce que tu étais en train de dire. Le président de la République démocratique du Congo, il a dit qu'on a aidé à construire l'Égypte, alors que nous sommes dans ces assises constituées des ressortissants de l'Afrique, que ce soit ceux de l'outre-mer ou ceux qui sont ici au Canada. Donc, quand je parle de l'outre-mer, je parle de Caraïbes. Donc, quand il faut savoir que l'Égypte ancienne était à 90 ou même 95% noire. C'est comme ça que vous allez voir, il y a des pyramides, mais aussi des têtes des pharaons. Parmi les premiers pharaons, vous allez voir que les statues des pharaons n'ont pas des nez. Pourquoi? Parce que les Blancs, quand ils sont arrivés, ils étaient obligés de couper les nez parce que le noir était reconnu pour avoir les nez épatés. Comme les premiers pharaons de l'Égypte avaient des nez épatés, c'est comme ça qu'on les avait dessinés. Quand ils sont arrivés, ils ont trouvé que les pharaons, vraiment, c'était des noirs. Par exemple, la première plus grande bibliothèque mondiale était en Égypte. C'est comme ça que l'Empire romain est venu la voler, cette bibliothèque, l'a déplacée, les plus grands mathématiciens et toute la construction, parce que l'Afrique était avancée en ce temps-là, que l'histoire, on en parle et on en reparle ici dans nos assises, que l'histoire du peuple noir a été déformée et on a injecté beaucoup de choses qui sont fausses. Par exemple, les nez qu'on a coupés, ils disent que non, ça n'a pas de justification. Imaginez-vous des statues qui n'ont pas de nez. Donc, il y a plusieurs histoires comme ça. Alors, la migration s'est faite à partir les Bantous sont descendus, d'autres sont partis du côté du Cameroun, d'autres sont partis, les Azandes qui sont restés au Soudan. Et tous ces métissages ont créé, d'autres sont restés en Éthiopie. C'est comme ça qu'il y a des gens qui ressemblent aux Éthiopiens au Congo, par exemple, à Lubumbashi, j'en ai rencontré plusieurs qui n'arrêtaient pas de me poser moi-même la question si j'étais nilotique. Je les ai dit non, je suis Muntu. Parce qu'il y a eu tellement de métissage dans la descente, dans la migration, étant un peuple nomade, il y a eu beaucoup de changements dans la migration jusqu'à ce que certains sont partis jusqu'en Afrique du Sud. Par exemple, les Tutsis. Les Tutsis, ce sont des Nilotiques qui sont descendus jusqu'en Afrique du Sud et Mandela Nelson il était Tutsi parce que c'est la branche des personnes qui sont descendues jusqu'en Afrique du Sud. Alors, il y a beaucoup de migration et je pense que le peuple noir était en Égypte jusqu'à ce que les Blancs, les Arabes qui étaient au-dessus ont commencé à les chasser petit à petit et nous sommes descendus jusqu'en Afrique subsaharienne. Et je pense que c'est une histoire aussi à reconquérir. Cette partie est très importante pour nous, savoir tout ce qu'on a fait pour l'humanité, comment est-ce que le peuple noir était évolué, l'Égypte qui était la plus grande civilisation mondiale dans l'Antiquité. Donc, c'est une histoire aussi à reconquérir. C'est ce que j'allais ajouter par rapport à ce que tu as dit.
Très bien. So he was saying that he did follow the speech. The president was saying that our president, sorry, I should mention this. It's relevant what I'm saying about the African Union right now as well, because our president just took over presidency of the African Union. So it's like Congo's turn to run the African Union from Ethiopia. I forgot to mention that in my presentation, but that's the connection there. But what Daniel was saying, that he followed the speech the president made in Egypt when he went to Egypt to say the heritage of Egypt is the heritage of all of Africa. There's a lot of just pure proof that's there that Africans that look like us were also there, the way they smash noses, the way the kind of archaeology in Ethiopia was quite racist for a long time. So it's important to challenge a lot of these beliefs to kind of find our position, our place again, because it also helps to explain some of the diversity that we see in Congo. We know that in East Congo, there's like those people that are mixed with the Nilotic people, like the more like, because like East Congo is really interesting. There was the Muslims who were there who were taking slaves. There was the people who migrated from up north down, who are there. Even Rwandans who were saying are mixed differently with different groups of people, have a different look. So to explain even the human story, like how we were all migrating, how we all came from there, it's not enough to just say, okay, everyone came from Cameroon, but then how do you explain these light-skinned people or people so light-skinned that are there, or like how do we all kind of fit? So Daniel was saying where he was from, tu viens de Lubumbashi, c'est ça? Okay, where he was from, he sees different mixes of people more. So for all of us to kind of find our place, it's good to challenge some of these initial kind of stories. Good. Papa Ndembe, do you have something to say, or anybody else has something to say before we pass it off to Giftii? Give him a chance. There you go.
No, I was saying that it's very interesting when you study history of Africa. All these things is good that we are really revisiting and really remembering those things because history is very important. Quand on dit que l'Afrique est le berceau de l'humanité, c'est juste to make a statement, but it's very true. One just thing I will say, you have to remember, you know, is that the major discovery, which is revolution and the whole world, it is discovery in Africa. C'est le feu même là qu'on a, c'est en Afrique que le feu même a été découvert, and we know what the energy of the fire was make is a revolution on the technology. So yeah, and Egyptians, like you said, they are not white. They're not. I mean, those people are really. And interesting enough, even the word Ethiopia, you know what it means? It means samples of burn skin. That means it is a black. And always think Ethiopia really meaning, you know, is a burn skin. So it's not somebody who has I would say black. And I will talk to my friend there. She will talk a tukur. So she's only the one who can understand.
Yeah, tukur. Yeah, that's what we. Yeah, it's true.
So that is the history that we have, and it's good that you're reminding also. I can say many things, but I was not prepared because it's really a long history. But what you have reminded, it is good. Yeah, thank you. Let's go proceed there.
No, so we're gonna proceed here to Giftii. Make sure that every time you're hearing about history or learning straight about strategic planning, things like that, always keep your strategic kind of planning hat on, your community leadership hat on. Try to see the different connections, and the real work comes in putting it all together. So with that being said, take it away.
Well, the famous mute button. Well, everybody, I know you're probably tired, so I know I have a lot of slides. I'm a little bit overly ambitious, so I'm gonna try to make it very easy for you. But just a little bit before we go into the planning. So here's the thing. I know most of you guys are students. Is that correct? So some of you guys are not students. Okay, so the person that's going to be able to answer my question at the end, I'm going to be sending you a Starbucks gift card. So therefore, you have great incentives to pay attention. Ike will be disqualified from this because Ike knows everything already. But what we're going to do is we are just going to have a conversation. Now, just a little bit about myself. Man, where do I start? So I am a person that grew up in Germany, and then I moved to Canada. And so I had to learn what it looks like to be faceted in the sense of learning different cultures, different languages. And so my experience coming from Ethiopia to Germany and from Germany to here was so many different things. And so I think what's one of the things I'm really passionate about, and something that I always talk about, is just how can we make an impact in our community, and what does that look like? And sometimes what happens is that we get so stuck on wanting to make a change that we end up being like our uncles who are at the coffee shop complaining instead of actually taking action. And so today's opportunity is really for us to talk about based on the experience I've had. So I am a diversity specialist. So I work with corporations, nonprofit organizations, and churches, and I also am an associate pastor at a church. So I kind of feel like I can do both things. And yeah, so we're gonna just dive right into it.
Educational.
So one of the big things is I want you guys to know what the key takeaways are. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm not the type of person that likes to present and you guys are just like falling asleep, you know? So just know that I want this to be a conversation. And so maybe I don't know much about SOS Congo, but I know I was there when it was launched, and I know that Ike and the team have been working tirelessly. And so what I want to do today is being able to come in and actually talk about things. For example, when we are coming into strategic planning, what is the main thing that we want to do, right? What does this implementation look like? How do we diversify how we retrieve information? What are our blind spots? What are our outcomes? The reason why these things are important is because Ike has shared that you guys have already gone through what it looks like to do strategic planning. There's different aspects of it, but I'm here to give you guys more of a practical application. So I'm going to be asking you guys at the end. So basically, the very first part is, what's the vision and mission of SOS Congo? So does anybody, this is a really good test. They should know this, right? They should know this answer.
For which one, like SOS Congo in general, or?
Yeah, like for the organization that you guys have. So,
Okay.
So overall, do they know the mission and the vision of that? Does anybody know that?
They probably wouldn't know that. We're trying to develop like a new vision for
A new vision.
this
Okay.
group here. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the vision for this group? Can someone answer that question for me?
Lavi, I think you wrote it down a while ago. We talked about it, or was it Jolie? I think Lavi had it.
Okay, so the reason why I'm asking this question is it'll kind of help make sense and tie in with what I'm talking about. So if the vision of what you guys are trying to do is you are trying to implement something, or you are trying to get more funding, or you're trying to make a difference, make a change, knowing the vision and mission is actually the very first point, I think, part of strategic planning. What happens a lot of times is with organizations that I've worked with, we end up having ideas and it conflicts, right? So knowing a clear vision and mission really helps. And I think you guys are trying to do that right now. And so what I want to encourage you guys is diligently to keep working on that. But if you don't actually, as a leadership team, as a team, you have to really believe in the vision of what you're trying to do. When I started working with a local organization here in Calgary, and I've been with them for 10 years, and I've been on the board with them, and I've been doing so many things. One of the things was that, what is the vision? What is the main thing? Is it very clear? And so some of the things I want to encourage you guys to think about is the fact that, like, number one, we need to clarify the vision, right? So you guys probably are thinking, well, we're talking about strategic planning, but this is a very important component. So if for example, what is your title with SOS Congo? You're the founder, correct? You're part of the founding members?
I'm president, Mama.
You're president. Okay, so my bad, bro. I was gonna say president, but I didn't want to be overly, Okay, so as the president, Ike's responsibility is to cast vision so that the team can grab that vision and make it their own. And they can say, hey, we're going to get more people. We're going to get more funding. We're going to plan things. We're going to actually make a difference and impact people's lives. So as the president and the team, whatever committee you guys have, it's very important to, number one, to clarify the vision. Right? Second thing is to organize the vision. And the third is to illustrate the vision. And the fourth is to communicate the vision. Why am I talking about vision? When there is no vision, you can't have good leadership. When there's no vision, you can't actually implement these strategic things that we're talking about. So if any of you guys walk away with anything, is know the vision of what you guys are trying to do. I actually would have loved to have somebody give me a 30-second pitch about what you guys do, a pitch that tells me what is the organization, because guess what? Funding, and when it comes to funding, when it comes to opportunities to make an impact, if you guys are unable to, because I can know the vision, because as a president, he knows that in his heart. But how many of the rest of you guys know the vision of this, right? That's the whole purpose of us coming together to plan. So the first aspect of planning really is to know the vision. The reason why I say organize the vision is because, let's say, so when I was working with an organization, they started off saying that the vision was to empower East Africans coming in to Canada and help them transition. And I said, okay, that's a great vision. I think that's pretty easy, but there's so many other groups right now that are doing the same thing. What makes you guys different? That was the question that I was asking them. What makes you different? So they had to clarify the vision, because who's their target audience? What are they trying to do? And by organizing the vision, what they're able to do is say, this is how we help people. Illustrating the vision is just having almost like a visual aspect that helps. And to communicate the vision is very simple. So now that leads me to the next point. Obviously, there might be uncertainty, which is kind of where we're probably all at right now. Maybe we have an idea, and as we're learning and you guys are trying to come in and you guys are trying to figure out the details, what happens is that right now you guys might be in the discover phase, right? You guys are not at the phase where you're actually already implementing. And so with that, over time, you actually are able to, time actually allows you to untangle the things that you are wanting to do, which is great. That's actually a really great part of strategic planning. You actually have an aspect. So the other thing is that I wanted to mention to you guys is there's two things. You can have the vision, but you also need what we call the end goal. So many of you already know what a strategic plan is. Ike was talking about the different forms of how to do the planning. So I'm not going to rehash those things, but the main thing is I want to be kind of giving you guys some insight into implementing that. So there's different phases. I'm a firm believer, and in the past, when I have done work with organizations, I've worked with Ethnocultural Council, I've worked with other local organizations. One of the biggest things I've taken away is that the organizations that work in phases are the people that are actually the most effective. The reason being is you actually are cutting up the workload into 4 different aspects. Now, when this happens is that it actually gives you an opportunity to think through box by box. So how many of you guys like to compartmentalize your emotions? Like, for example, like, let's just like talk. Let's talk real talk, right? Let's say you had a bad day at work. Does work stay at work or does work come home, right? Do you have like little boxes where you put all your thoughts in? Anyone like that? No? Yes? Okay. There's some people who are like, man, that's work stuff. I'm done. I'm coming home. I'm just going to like unwind. I'm going to relax. And there's some people who actually take their work home, or they work from home. So everything, there's no set of boundaries. What creating phases in what we do with strategic planning, it is very helpful to split it up into phases. It's like having almost boxes of where you put your thoughts, and you don't have to worry about it till you get to that point. Does that make sense? And so it is actually interchangeable. So if you know what the vision is and your end goal, you can actually, this is what I've done and I've recommended this to companies. This may not sound conventional, but it works. It is actually start off with your end goal. What is your end goal? What is it you want to do? And kind of work backwards too. So the reason why I'm suggesting this is because there's obviously so many different ways to do strategic planning, but the vision and the end goal have to be interjected, right? They have to work together. So if the vision is one thing and the end goal is another, it's not going to communicate. It's going to miss the point, right? So the main thing is that we look at things and we say, hey, this is the vision, this is the end goal. So if I were to follow your end goal of what you want to produce, I should be able to go back and see that it ties to your vision. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. You can actually start at the end. You're probably like, what? What do you mean? Let me give you an example. So I came up with a plan. I was responsible, as a youth coordinator for an organization. I was responsible for actually starting the department, recruiting teams, developing it, get funding and execute it, implement it, and then write a response of a grant. A lot of work. What I did was I started at the end. when I started at the end, it was like, what is the outcome I want? I wanted to see 100 kids that were from Ethiopia and Eritrea actually gain and like learn life skills. So I came up with a program that's actually going to produce that. And then I said, what do we need in order for me to have this goal to actually implement it? Number one, we needed to have a place. We need to have funding. We need to have, these are all the different things. We needed a staff, we needed a team. And so what I did was I started with the end goal, because if you have an end goal, it actually gives you vision for your future state. So your current state, where you're at right now, is probably you're just trying to figure it out. But the main thing is, where are you wanting to go? So I actually want to hear from a couple people, not maybe not specifically about the things, but what is your dream for your community? What is one thing that you would love to see? Let's say you could get funding today. What is one thing you'd love to see? You can just even type it in the chat. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts.
Okay, let's start with, hello? Was someone talking?
Yeah, I said a community center.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What else?
Could you guys hear me?
Yes.
Say like students, because most of them is like ran by like no. Okay. Sorry.
I think it's your headphones. Okay. Do you want to type it in the chat? I can read it out. Oh. So I would say, like, you guys probably want to see your she said more Afro dance studios. Yes. So these are things, give yourself permission as a team to dream these things, because most of them are yes. This is why we need, listen, representation matters. And so by creating even a dance studio that is by people who are like you with your music and your culture background is needed in the place, right? Doing more events to get people to participate. Yes, that's amazing. So if you have a community center, what does that look like? If you don't have a dance studio, what does it look like? Having events that are culturally infused with your different tribes and different ethnic groups, different languages, what would that look like? And so that's the point I'm trying to make, is you can work backwards. You can start off with the vision that you want to see and say, man, like I would love to see this. And then now it actually feels more inspiring to do the work, because if you start off being like, oh my gosh, okay, what do we have? What do we have? No, like give yourself permission to aim high. When I started this program, I didn't think anyone was going to show up. We had about 60 kids that showed up. My goal was like, if I can get 20 kids, perfect. Like I'm good. Then I realized we are actually the most present people in their lives. We need to create a way to stay in their lives. And we didn't have funding, but we had a building, and we found a building, and we found a location, and we found a time. I just was able to cast vision to a team, and they said, hey, we want to make a difference too. And so we were able to get it going. And now we've actually received double funding moving on into this year, because organizations that have been funding us have said, hey, you guys actually did the work. So sometimes taking a leap of faith and starting at the end is a good thing. So let's say somebody just gave me, you guys already answered my first question, which is, what is the vision you want to execute, right? I'm going to ask the president, sir, what is something you like would love to see? Like, I know you've been doing this for many years and you're passionate about serving your community. What is your dream?
Like the vision of SOS Congo, is that what you're asking, or like personal?
No, like what is your dream for, like what would you love to see with your like with this organization? Like where do you want to take this? Like what is something you'd love to see?
I think, yeah, like our initial vision was always to, like, SOS Congo, like sharing our story, like to be able to have the Congolese story spoken by Congolese people, and not be burdened by the single narrative. Like our identity is shaped by a lot of things that people hear about us. They don't really know about us. We have pretty bad reputation. So our thing was always to show the true side of what it means to be Congolese. And in doing so, we wanted to get a community center. We've got 2 spaces now, reach youth, do that kind of thing. But I think essentially it's just being able to really share our story on bigger platforms and really get through that.
That's so good. And so even you saying that, right? Like getting the stories being told, having someone being able to actually present this and say, hey, this is what we want to do. So for those of you guys that you guys just heard what he said, what would be a blind spot in your community right now? Why has it not taken off? I'm not saying SOS specifically, but in your community, right? We all have blind spots. I'm probably saying this because a lot of times, okay, do you want to type it in the chat or do you want to tell me? I think Raisa, you have your hand up.
Yeah,
Go ahead. I want to hear your thoughts.
I was gonna say most of us, maybe 50 or 60% of us, like to like follow other cultures. We forget where we come from,
That's good.
and we're not always so interested, especially when we get out of Africa. We're not really that fully interested
Yeah,
about ourselves. Yeah.
that's good. So that's definitely a blind spot that you guys can feel the need, right? By creating that dance studio and having a community center, you're saying that, hey, our culture is cool and it deserves to be told. The stories, it deserves to be told in the way that it's supposed to be told, right? And so this is kind of the beauty of being able to, number one, in strategic planning, is to be able to look at the end result, the end goal, and say, how are we going to do that? And then also assessing your blind spot. Let me tell you something. I have worked with organization, and whenever they said they needed someone to come in and to do something, I've always realized, okay, well, why hasn't it been done before? What are the challenges? So if you as a group can actually say, these are the challenges in our community, and this is why, like Erasa made a great point saying that the next generation is not really, people who come here don't really care for the culture sometimes, and they want to get away from it. But I think there's beauty in richness and celebrating that. So knowing those blind spot actually gives you a strong suit to even tell people, right? We're telling people when we're asking for funding, we're saying, hey, we want to actually commemorate our history. We want to be able to have a place where it's a center for kids who grew up here, who can't go back home to visit, to actually know our culture. And so that's the beautiful thing. So this is why planning in phases is very important when it comes to strategic planning. I have seen organizations that I've worked with done in phases. So what we did was in phase one was, okay, we are just like, this is the discovery phase where we're just trying to figure out what our goals are and end goals are. Phase two was like, okay, we're going to start implementing, which means we need to get a team together. Phase three was, okay, what are the costs, the breakdown, the role description. And phase four was to actually execute. And so in all those phases, you have to have short-term goals and you have to have long-term goals. The reason why that's important is because maybe each phase is going to take 6 months. Who knows, right? Each phase might take 3 months. And some phases is that you can actually, the time allocated for each phase might be a lot less or more. So I can say in my experience, sometimes we've been stuck in phase one for a whole year, right? And it has taken us time to get a team together and to get the ball rolling, or even to just say, but so I want you guys to know that as a team, as you guys are deciding to move forward, make sure that you're allocating time as you're planning ahead to make sure that you're able to phase your project. And so you don't want to miss your targets and your goals. You want to manage it effectively. There's a few resources that are free, or you can even purchase it. It's really good to use. One of them is Trello. Trello is really cool because like you can actually have like a project management phase all planned out. It looks like sticky notes, but it's digital and it's free. Asana, Monday, all of those are like really great resources, and also communication, even like resources like Slack. So the biggest thing with strategic planning is that communication is very, very important. So that being said, in my past experiences, what were blind spots? I know for example, I was under the impression that people cared. When you're working in the nonprofit sector, sometimes people really don't care. They say, okay, why should we commit to this? Why should we give a cause? And so sometimes the biggest issue that you see is that you actually do not have an ability to know what the people need, right? And what the people want, because maybe your experiences are just tying into your perception, into what you think, what you want. So I think it's very important to have a really good feedback culture. So if you're going to work as a team, it's very important that your team has a healthy feedback culture. Not having a healthy feedback culture is actually a blind spot. Let me tell you guys this real quick story. So I was starting out a team and I was a little bit intense because I was under a lot of pressure. This was in 2012 and we are just launching the youth program. I didn't have a lot of people that I could work, but I was aggressively pursuing people in the community that I knew had skill sets, and they were all young professionals. I said, hey, you have but people were not really sold on the idea that much. And so what happened was that their lack of interest was enough feedback, but I wasn't paying attention because I said, no, we need to execute this. Like, this is what we have to do for our community. This is what we got to do. And in the end, I actually ended up losing team members because I was not in a position where I was taking feedback. So having healthy feedback culture actually really helps. Saying, hey, what do you guys think about this? Having an ability where we can say, like, we need actually diversity. When we talk diversity, we're not just talking about racial diversity. We're not talking about just like what we all have to do from the same tribe, from the same language, but it's actually even with age, right? Having people who have walked in wisdom, who are older than us, multi-generational, having diversity in that sense is very important. The reason why I say that is because somebody who's been working in the business world for 20 years, who has experience with one thing, can be so beneficial to your team than most of us who are like a lot younger saying, hey, like we've only been around half the time, right? So diversifying your team is very important. So if that means there's people that you guys can think of that can help execute the vision, that's great. But feedback is what really connects, again, your vision. So we want to take feedback that takes us back to the vision and not just feedback for the sake of feedback. You guys know, I mean, I'm East African, so like, I know my culture is probably very similar to your culture, but you know, our people, we love to give feedback all the time, right? Whether it's like how you look, how you dress, you're not doing this right. And you know, like all these questions that they ask you. But the main thing is it's feedback that has to go back to the main vision, right? So if we want to receive feedback that is back to the vision of what the organization is. What is the implementation we can do? Is there a place is there things that we can stop doing, start doing, or continue doing? Now, speaking of feedback, I think it's really important that another blind spot that we have is actually a lack of clarity, right? So I think communicating goals is just very important. Sorry, I'm just skipping through these slides. So this is, again, I asked this client if I can share this, and they asked me to crop out any details that have to do with the program. But I do want to say that this is another form of feedback, right? Looking at measurable outcomes. I'm zipping through the slides because you guys have already been hearing a lot of things, but I think this is an actual example. So what we did was we created a feedback form. This was back in 2014, 2015. And we created this feedback form. And this form was actually for us to, every time we hosted a workshop for our community or something that we did, we were able to actually send out these feedback to see if we can get a score. And so this was actually a way for us to see, are people actually enjoying it? You know, sometimes you just attend things and then like you guys were saying, even like, hey, I don't remember what we talked about Friday because this weekend was just a lot of things, right? But we need actual tangible things to actually measurement. So this is what I would think as a team that you guys need to have. So what are your target questions? These questions are just an example of just, we were starting off. And so we were actually doing this. And so I will tell you this, that the program became so successful that we doubled in funding. Not only that, but I have people calling me from New York and Boston, different countries, asking us if they can take our proprietary program that I personally created and see if we can replicate it in different places. So sometimes when you have something that's good, the only way you know that is by actually having measurable outcomes that give you good feedback. If it's just feedback amongst your group, there's two types of feedback. There's a leadership feedback when you're on the committee, on the board, and you're sharing feedback, but then there's also feedback from the community. Who are our audience? So if my audience is like, my empowerment program that I'm working on is for ages of 15 to 29. That was the age group. But there were some years where we had kids that were like 12 to 16, and that was our highest outcome. We realized, okay, well, why is our demographic shift when our target was 15 to 29? And so by doing these feedback, we were actually able to narrow down where we lost material, where we didn't spend enough time, what was needed, and actually knowing what our community needed. That is very important. So on a very practical scale, I'm a very practical person. So any advice I give you guys is like stuff I've done and stuff I've implemented. So this is also another measurable outcome. I worked with another company, another organization, and this was more of an intricate feedback form, but it's almost like a democratic, not democratic, demographic survey. So this was actually very important. So I don't know if you guys can see, but it says here administrative data. Oh my gosh. Okay. Administrative data. So this is like, what's today's date? Having a client ID. I know this is like, you guys are probably like, what? Why is this important? Let me tell you something. When you're applying for funding and they're saying, okay, show us what you've got. Show us the receipts. If you don't have anything to provide, how are you going to increase your impact? How are you going to increase your funding? How are you going to increase even getting more people on the team, right? So sometimes this, for example, was like we had a larger demographic, and this was working with the Canadian Mental Health Organization. And so this actually, we needed some reports. So we needed like almost like a pre and post program assessment. So once people have gone through the program, at the end of the program, they're required to complete another assessment to say, have their life changed? Was it an impact? So if we don't actually have tangible, measurable outcomes, we can't make a difference. So especially if you're working in your community, people just by word, it's not enough. We need something in writing. So then my next question to you guys is, what are the systems that you're using to track your measurable outcomes? Now, let me tell you this. You may not even have a system, a simple Excel spreadsheet, writing down the meetings you have. I literally have a log of people that I meet with and mentor in our community. And then that way, it's actually like how many people did we make an impact? And statistically, it tells us that 75% of NGOs miss funding opportunities because they're not tracking their measurables. So for example, if you have an event and 200 people come out for that event and 200 people's lives are impacted, like, you realize it's a huge thing. But if you don't have it in writing, then it's just words, right? And so I know that organizations that actually hire people to do grant writing, a lot of times it's because they do pre and post assessment, and that is the secret to actually running a successful program with measurables. And these can be different things, right? But this specifically is very, very important. So also make the most out of the internet. There's a lot of like free resources that can make it easy for you guys. We had to move our program online because of COVID, but we had from 60 kids, it doubled online. Imagine during COVID, we have more kids coming for a program. And the only reason why was because it was peer-based motive. They knew the vision, and we casted the vision, and we said, hey, if you come back and you help, this is how we're going to do it. And so we're actually able to see the impact. And so creating even like an automated customer service, I mean, maybe that's not where you guys are at because that's not necessary, but having a system in place, utilizing and maximizing your social media channels, even just like creating an e-commerce platform where it's like you're selling shirts, but also taking it serious by utilizing analytic tools. So when it comes to strategic planning and diversifying even the information you guys have, it is actually really smart to maximize what you have. And so some of the things that I shared with you guys today are things that are really, 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 really important. And so I will say this, I mean, the organizations I've worked with in the past are people that like, they are like getting $1 million grants, okay? Like they're getting a lot of money. The only way is because when they started off, they actually had outcomes that were measurable. They looked at their blind spots. They were ensured to have good feedback in their culture. They stayed engaged, their ears to the ground, to the community. What are the needs and how do we meet them? And the other thing was that they had a diversified team, which means that even with people who are older or younger, people who are able to bring perspective to it. And so I know that that went through very, very quickly, but this is like a really big component of like how to be strategic planning and to actually implement it and what it looks like. I also can tell you that there's programs that we've created. We did a young professionals network, and you guys, like literally we had a list of 120 people who had signed up to come to the event. Only 3 showed up. Only 3 showed up. We realized professionals don't want to connect anymore. They want mentorship. So people were like, hey, does this mean I'm going to get a job? Is that why? So there's programs that we've created that I've been a part of that we've had to say, we got to scrap that idea, right? So you got to know as a team when to scrap an idea and when to move forward. But the only way you can do that is by assessing your blind spots, by getting good feedback, and actually phasing out your plans. One of the things I skipped really quickly, I'm going to go back to it here, is that it was this part right here. I forgot to show you guys. So I have a client who was not comfortable with me sharing, so I had to look up online for another design template. But this is pretty much when I was telling you guys the companies I've worked with that have a lot of money for grants. This is actually how they lay it all out. They phase it all out. For each phase, they have a spreadsheet, and basically what is the development project objective, what is the immediate objective, the outputs. These are just like different words, but basically it's like, okay, if we were to start today, these are all the things. And so actually having a brainstorming session is very important. So this is really, really good because it actually puts your vision outside of your head and onto paper. And so even as a team right now, like you guys seem to have a lot of ideas, and I want to encourage you, like, you can do it. It's not impossible. It's really not impossible. It just seems overwhelming. And so when it comes to strategic planning, there's a lot of aspects to it, but I do want to encourage you guys to think about, like, what are some things. And so if we look at that end goal of what we want to do, maybe even you have a personal vision. My personal vision was to see youth empowerment and to see kids off the street and for them to actually have mentors in their life. And so that's why I started the program with the organization I worked with. But there were other people who said, hey, I'm really passionate about women domestic violence. So they created a program. We started collecting cell phones for women so that at shelters, you know, when we see like people in our community who are actually having domestic violence issues, they didn't have cell phones, they just came to the country, right? So being able to support each other's visions too is very helpful. And so at this time, I'm going to take questions. I know even if you guys want to ask me questions about things I've done in the past, I'm happy to answer. But yeah, I just want to really thank you guys for having me today. And I love just seeing our communities expand and grow and flourish. And yeah. I don't know how to exit out of this. Passing it back to you, Ike.
All right. Already, mute button. Okay, everybody clap it up for Giftii. Honestly, thank you. 2 days of strategic planning stuff, but that was a great presentation. I think I'm just gonna do a little round. I'm gonna make sure that everybody just kind of gets a chance to speak, and then hopefully the conversation goes where it goes. Can we have you, how much time do you have left, Giftii? What's your schedule looking like?
I'm good for another 30 minutes.
Okay, cool. Hopefully we won't take up all that time, but since we have the time, let's try. So I'm going to start with Cristiano. Cristiano, just it doesn't necessarily have to be a question, but what your impressions are, or maybe a comment around strategic planning. I know that you're the businessman in the group there, so a lot of this stuff transitions to a different setting. So feel free to give feedback from any kind of angle there. But we'll start with Cristiano. If you're there, sometimes it takes him a while to like unmute. It'll be Cristiano and then Jamima next. So you guys be ready to unmute yourselves and get going after that. Cristiano, you there? Okay, maybe not. Jamima?
I really enjoyed that presentation, first of all. And it
Video,
just
put your video on so we can see you.
I look very crusty right now, and
Oh,
I don't have the energy to like make myself look presentable.
Look, I got like I'm sweating because I was carrying babies here and I didn't change my shirt.
TMI.
Like just we family. Just feel comfortable.
Okay, you sound beautiful, so keep going.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'll talk as I'm trying to see how I can look. But anyways, I just wanted to say that it was really helpful because I know that a lot of times I catch myself being like, oh, like I really want to do this, and like it would be nice if I could do this, and it's kind of just like, you know, thoughts, or just like you're just planning stuff because like, yeah, it'd be cool to do this, but you never really know how to start, where to start, who your connections would be, and different stuff like that. And it's like, I feel like that's kind of what everyone that wants to start a business or just anything goes through. Like I mentioned, dance thing, like that's always been something on my mind and something that I'm like, if people can do it, like why can't you, you know? But it's just like, how am I gonna pull people in? Who am I, like, I don't know, I don't have any dancing friends, you know, stuff like that. So that presentation definitely did help to like clear it up a little bit in like the different steps you need in order to kind of like do what you want to do, I guess. So yeah, that was really good. Thank you.
No problem. I do want to say this is that I think a great leader will always delegate, right? So you play off of your strengths. It's like a little advice for everybody is that like assess your strengths. So if you know what your strengths are, especially when it comes to teamwork, like you exert those strengths and you utilize that. For me, I'm better at planning and executing and seeing something through. I feel like I have vision, I can cast vision for a team, but I'm not the person that looks at all the details to say, oh, this is what we need. Like, so I always try to find people where I'm not weak, that they're strong, and we can actually make a dynamic team, you know? So
Good stuff. Good question. Good comment too. It was both. Let's go Vince next and then Benita after that.
So I want to say like how she was talking about like tracking and measuring the outcome targets. Like this is really important because like it's a huge deal. Because now that you think about, the more you think about it, like it's really important to know like your goal, or have things organized so that you can reach a certain goal. Because like with any like organization or anything like starting up, it's always hard because like organizing it is the hardest part of it, because once everything's like panned out, you could just flowing. Once it starts going, it gets easier.
mhm.
So just starting it up is like really hard, and what you said about that was really important. That caught my attention.
Yeah, I do want to say that starting out is really hard. I know that the organization that I was part of, we launched in 2010. And so 10 years, but the funding didn't roll in right away. So the funding took time, but a lot of it had to do with sacrifice and just vision. And also the key has been like unifying our community to say, hey, like we're gonna be like focusing, talking to different faith leaders, talking to different businesses, seeing how they can actually advantage. And so now even like on Facebook, we have over 16,000 followers on social media on Facebook alone, and we produce content online now. But still, like even with membership too, like that takes time. So 10 years and like we're still like not where we want to be, but just know that like when you're starting, like you start somewhere, because like whatever is your ceiling is someone else's floor.
Good. Benita?
Um, how long like did it get you? Like, how long did it get you guys to become like this far with all the I can't say the organizations, and then what made you like want to be like a part of all of this?
That's a really good question. The minute that a team was formed saying, hey, like what made us go is that we were seeing that there was over 50% of Ethiopian and Eritreans that were living below the poverty line. That was a data done in 2008. And so a bunch of us were like, well, there has to be something. And so I wasn't part of the founding team because I just heard about it. But then I realized that like we actually, the reason why people are living below the poverty line, which is crazy to me, is that like they come here for a better life and they live below the poverty line is because lack of education, lack of opportunities, lack of resources, and there's not enough representation. And so being able to be a bridging gap between what the community needed and what government was offering, and being able to like host job fairs and host like different things that are just like basic needs, where I was actually able to gain information and to provide support to the community. And so it definitely took about two years before we started actually seeing a return of our hard labor, but that's because you actually win the hearts of people eventually. And so, and for me, I'm very passionate about like just making sure that like, I mean, I care about my culture, and I think it's very important that we are able to actually make a difference. There's just a lot of different groups now today, but back in 2010 there was not. So I just wanted to make a difference, and I feel like that's just like I'm an all-in person, and so Ike and I were part of ASA together. So this is just like it's just part of like all the experiences I've had was just to help. So
Good stuff. Let's go to Junior and Pamela.
All right. For me, the main. Sorry. For me, the
There
main.
you go.
Yeah. For me, the main points I took away from this is having the vision. You know, like how she said the four things, like clarify, organize, illustrate, communicate the vision. Another thing she said that I caught was starting at the end, like so knowing what you like, knowing the end goal and starting from there instead of the other way. Allocating your time and phasing your target. Like she had that little pie chart where like it had the different phases, like the initiation, planning, execution, and then the project closure. Yeah, that's what I caught from that.
I feel like Junior, you killed it. I'm gonna give you my email. I'm gonna send you the gift card because you killed it.
Junior, I think half the time you're not even paying attention and you're just feeling yourself, like checking yourself out on the thing. But you had two flawless answers today. I'm backing up on Gifty saying, sorry, Gifty, go ahead and answer his question.
No, oh, sorry. Did you ask a question? I was just listening. It was great.
Yeah, I didn't ask a question. It was just like what I took away.
All right, good stuff. I think I said Pamela after that.
I really liked the idea about increasing feedback in the culture because it reminded me of how at MRU we have like the end of the semester feedback surveys where you have to assess each of your profs. And I feel like that's a really good way of like building because otherwise you don't really know like what are you doing wrong or right in the class.
Yeah.
I also really liked the idea of starting at the end because I write a lot of stories that and I always start at the end because that way I can see like what do I need to do to get to that and what are the potential like problems I can run into.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you like. I'm glad that it resonated with you, because sometimes for us that people who have see the bigger picture, we need to start with the bigger picture and then go towards the details, and so maybe that'll help you guys move along a little bit more.
Awesome. I love how engaged you guys were during this presentation. That's man, you guys are making me look good. Thank you. Let's go to we'll do Raisa and Laurent afterwards.
Yeah, you are looking good. Okay.
Why are you laughing at me all the time, Raisa? Man.
Don't worry, I know Ike on a personal level, so I know he's sweating over there.
So I like the presentation, especially coming from an African woman, because we don't learn these kind of stuff at school.
Yeah.
And I really liked how she mentioned how it's better to start at the end. I feel like we don't really like notice that. We don't really, how do I say this? We don't really like, how do I say this? Like, yeah, let me just go to what I said at the beginning. We don't really like notice that. And I loved how you also got feedbacks from your own community and how I think you had forums where people like wrote what they thought and everything. And that's really important. And I was also going to ask you if you guys have a head office.
We do have a head office, but right now because of COVID. And we also, by the way, I forgot to mention this, in 2017 and 18, we expanded to Winnipeg and Edmonton for our branch locations. But yeah, we do have a head office here in Calgary. It's actually in the same building where Action Dignity is. We share the space with them and we have a great relationship with them. But yeah, it takes time, and yeah, you guys are just starting out. You guys have a great niche of things you could do for your community, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what you guys are going to come up with these planning meetings.
Good stuff. Laurent?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the presentation too. It was a lot of info, but it was very like important to learn like the strategic things to make like a business or a community. And when you talked about how you want at least like 20 youths to like participate, but then it skyrocketed to like 60, and you're like shocked about that. Like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna keep doing this until like goes up to 1,000, and I really like
Yeah.
you won't know like you won't know the limit until you try,
Yeah.
and that just like gives you more confidence and a motivation to like make it more to make your business more better and growing. So yeah, that one makes me.
Yeah. And I think too, I tend to be like overly ambitious. So I would always be like, when I'm ever writing grants, I'm like, I want to see 1,000 kids come out. And then they'll be like, I'll always like ask for like, for a grant, I'll always ask for like the highest number. So if it's 20,000, I'll be like, we're asking for 20,000 because we need it. And they'll end up giving us like 8,000. I'm like, that's fine. Like, we know, as Africans, we know how to squeeze like everything out of a penny. So like it's not a problem. But yeah, I think if you don't try, if you don't start, like someone else is going to take your idea and get started. And so you guys just need to have the confidence that like your people, what your culture needs, you guys know what your people need. And even if the funding isn't there, just start, because that's how it always begins, is people just taking a leap of action, just saying like, we want to make a difference. That's more important than funding at the moment. So
Awesome. Good stuff. Let's go to Felicia next. Felicia, we're talking about strategic planning and diversity. So you're the Trini that's here. You always
yes.
complicate my presentations where I have to say something Caribbean so that the history is not all Congolese and everything like that. We translate French into English, blah, blah, blah. But no,
She's honorary Congolese anyways, so she's been in
honorary
the community for a minute.
at this
Feel like
point.
that.
But yeah, but your perspective, and maybe speak about that diversity piece in our community. I think your kind of insight into that would be valuable.
Yeah, I think, well, based on the presentation first, it was great. And like, I know about all that like pre and post, because with the youth that I work with, like we do pre and post surveys because we need to
Mhm.
get those outcomes, because the donors and the funders, they want that. They want to see that. They want to know what's happening, want to know how it's affecting. Like it's like drilled down our throats to make sure we get pre, mid, post surveys, because they want to see how the money that they're giving to us is being
Yeah.
used, and being like how it's being contributing to the society, right? So that speaks a lot to me. And yeah, like I think it's like being the only like non Congolese or even non African in this group all the time. It's I,
Ashley.
I do just love hearing about it, and I feel like it's good to have that diversity perspective. Like I think it'd be great. I would have loved to have even some other like, well, Ashley's there. She's the Canadian Black Canadian, so it's good that she can kind of give her take on stuff. But I just love that it's not just like, yes, SOS is Congolese, and it's a group for the Congolese people, but I think it's good that it's welcoming of other um, cultures and backgrounds and countries and stuff like that. So it's good. I love it. I love
Yeah.
being a part of this, and I love learning about it and acting like I'm Congolese, like the rest of y'all.
I do want to add to the diversity piece, because I didn't get to emphasize a little bit more on it, but I know that we started like a computer program for moms. Like we call them aunties. So like these are like older women who've been at home, but they've been in this country for 20 years, don't even know how to open it. So we actually got a bunch of laptops, but we needed an instructor. And so we wanted an instructor that could speak our language, because these people, they barely leave their house, and it's just cultural appropriation. So we couldn't find a woman that could teach these women. And so we were like, okay. So then this lady we were looking for a volunteer position. So this lady, she's actually a professor from Iran. And so she was like, hey, like I'm actually a computer science like teacher, and like I'm trying to gain experience. So in exchange of me volunteering for you guys, could you guys write a reference for me for work? And so because even though she's not Black, she's not African, she was still able to come in, and we still made sure we'd have a translator, volunteer translator present. And so it was really cool to see how actually our cultures are more integrated than we think we know. And the program ended up being successful because like she was very like on top of it. Like she was like, and like these women like were able to graduate from this computer course that we created for them in our community. And it is because she was like, hey, I don't care. And so sometimes you just need to find people that like, it's just about helping people. That's the priority. And so diversifying what you already have and utilizing your network is very important.
Agreed.
Perfect. Jamima, I saw your hand was raised. Did you lower it again, or is it all
You
good?
basically answered my question already. So
What was the question, if you want to just restate it?
like I just kind of wanted to like, I was just wondering because Felicia obviously mentioned that being like one of the only non-Congolese in this group, she likes that, you know, we're welcoming of everybody else and stuff. But then Gifty mentioned that you know your society and you know what your society needs and stuff like that. So I was just like, is it better to keep it focused on your target audience, or as you grow, is it better to kind of grow in it? So if you're doing something for Congolese people, if you're welcoming Jamaicans, white people, Russians, I don't know, Asians, do you stay talking about Congo all the time, or do you, you know, broaden it a little bit? Because it kind of like, you know, the Congolese people that joined in the beginning are gonna be like, okay, well, like I'm here for the Congo entertainment, and then the other people are gonna be like, okay, but like, you know. So that's what I was gonna ask. But I think
it's a really good question. And thank you for turning on your camera. I can answer that. So I do believe that, again, it goes back to the vision, right? So what is our vision? What is our goal? Who is our audience? What are we trying to do? So once you know exactly who your target is, and it's okay if it's Congolese people, because there's probably not enough resources and services outside of faith organizations doing something for the Congolese community. Maybe there is, I don't know. So I'm being ignorant, right? But I do think when you're starting off, if there are people who are already very welcoming of your culture and wanting to understand and they want to help, there's nothing wrong with that, right? And I think like embracing and saying like, it is still like our cultures are very similar in that sense. And I think as you grow, it's going to bring on people who are specialized in different things. For example, like this woman who, you know, she's not even from Africa. So like, it was like, we don't even know if she's going to understand our culture, but we end up finding out that our cultures are a lot similar just because of like, being an immigrant, you actually understand the same struggles. And so I think as you grow, you can expand, but it's not about having an exclusive club, but once you have the vision, you can see who actually fits the vision. And so Felicia has experience that could fit the vision of where this group is trying to go. There could be somebody else that could come in that wants to serve your community, and that's totally okay.
And just to add on to that point a little bit, it's something that is pretty relevant in the Black community right now. So if we say like when we're doing our community mapping section, we realize, yes, we're Congolese, we come from Congo, but there's other points of connection, like our race, like being Black or perhaps speaking French, or there's other things that we have in common with other groups, and we can I don't know, like it's to be exclusively Congolese. When we were asking us those questions, it's pretty hard. There's a lot of, like, we're part of a bigger family. We have more in common with other people, and thinking through these things, even with funding, or thinking through how we're going to execute on these plans, you have to factor in a lot of like these different things. So with us with Congo, we never wanted to try to represent any other community group. I think we would fail. We never tried to represent all of Africa, either all Black people, either, because that we would fail as well. But I think if you're just true to yourself, you say, we're this, we're gonna do this, everybody's welcome, our focus is here. But for like where it makes sense to include others, where it makes sense to work with other people, where we have a lot in common with other people, I think it's always good to maintain that vision as well. But when we talk deeper with strategic planning, these are the good questions. This is where you get in the weeds, and really like a lot of that good learning happens when you ask these tough questions. So definitely thanks for that. We're gonna go next to Lavi and Daniel, and then Papa Ndembe is gonna close for us. Papa Ndembe, are you driving? I see Rachel there.
we are in the car, but I'm following everything, no problem.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, we're gonna go to Lavi and Daniel, and then you're gonna be last up.
Okay, thanks a lot. That was a great presentation. Honestly speaking, yeah, we are empowered. Of course, we've heard a lot about strategic planning, and we're still receiving. Yeah, that was really empowering. I want to understand two things from you. Would you like to clarify when you said having vision but start executing at the end? Sounds a little bit controversial. I know there's there's this management theory that says that sometimes when you are stuck, start executing your project in disorder than being, than staying stuck. So can you elaborate really with much details, if you can, about
Yeah.
how to start successfully from the end? The last question would be about measuring outcomes. What are the key components? What are the elements that you focus on in measuring outcome, mostly in your organization?
These are really great questions. So when I say start at the end, that is actually secondary to vision. So I firmly believe that knowing the vision is the primary thing. So if, let's say, our vision is to empower, to educate, and to equip the Congolese youth, let's say that's our vision. So then what we do is, what does that look like in the end? And then we work our way from there, if that makes sense. So it's not necessarily that the point of when I was making with that design was that if the vision is very clear, if it's to empower, to equip, and to educate the Congolese youth, the end result should be that we see more youth going to university, more youth getting better jobs, more youth actually having better life skills. And so if that's the end result, it allows us to actually always go back to the vision, which says this is what we're all about. When it comes to measurable outcomes, components that are very important is always the age demographic, especially for funding. They always want to know who your target audience is. What is the age group? For some reason, there's always funding specifically for different age groups or different demographics. So if it's women, if it's, retired people, whatever it is, knowing that demographic, especially with age, is very, very important. And the other thing is, if let's say your program is working on mental health, we did a program like that. And so with mental health, what happens is that you want to assess, right? So how are you doing before you were in the program? What's your expectation once you go into this mentorship program? And having them to actually provide you with an assessment of what mind state they're in. And then after 6 months, having them to complete another assessment, say, has this program actually beneficial to your life? How has it impacted you? So asking key component questions based on what your key target output should be. So the things that are important is that you're answering your own question through this assessment. And so if your outcome is that the youth would be more empowered and educated and get jobs, well, you should be able to ask questions. Well, did you find a job because of our program? Was your life impacted in what way? Did your socioeconomic status change? These are all factors that we would want to see. So when it comes to outputs and components, it's very important that you're putting those same things into the assessment at the end, so that you're giving this to people and saying, hey, we will keep your identity hidden, so you don't need their first and last name. What I normally do is when we do a case study or we take initial information, we just get the letters, right? So if the first name is Ike, we say I, and the last name is Kenzo, so K. So this person's name would be I, and then we would give them a number. And so that the assessment, when we give it for funding, we can say this person, this is the general change that has happened through this duration of time.
Very good, great, thanks. The last one is for Felicia. Don't worry, we are ready to adopt you. Just submit your resume.
Good. Let's go to Daniel. Daniel, you're up next.
Merci pour la présentation. C'était une très bonne présentation qui nous a. Il y a plusieurs points qui sont venus à nous comme ça. Et on commence à voir clair sur certaines situations. Alors, je vais résumer mes questions en deux choses par rapport à la vision et par rapport à comme la vie était en train de parler de commencer vers la fin. Parce que, sachant que la vision, c'est la maquette que l'on a encore dans la tête avant l'exécution. Parce que la vision, c'est ce que l'on va faire, mais qu'on n'a pas encore fait. Donc, nous sommes en train de planifier quelque chose que l'on va faire, mais qu'on n'a pas encore fait. Alors, ce qui rejoint exactement la question de la vie qui disait comment commencer par la fin, quelque chose que l'on n'a pas encore commencé, ce qui est paradoxal, qui est aussi ambigu à ce niveau. Alors, ma question est celle-ci. Ma première question est, sachant que nous sommes dans une communauté qui, déjà facilement, quand il y a des visions comme celle de Ike qui est venu avec ce projet, il nous a présenté, on a adhéré à la vision et on essaye d'aider l'accomplissement de la vision. Mais il y a aussi des difficultés par rapport aux gens qui croient d'abord en la vision. Parce qu'il y a deux types de personnes. Il y a des personnes, quand Ike, par exemple, leur parle de la vision, ou par exemple, quand Giftii leur parle de la vision, ils croient en la vision, ils investissent leur temps et ils investissent leur énergie dans la vision. Il y a un deuxième groupe de personnes, quand on leur parle de la vision, la première des choses, ils disent, sûrement tu le fais pour le fond, tu auras le fond et il n'y aura rien qui va se passer. Alors, ma sous-question dans la première question, comment as-tu pu vaincre cette... c'est sûr que vous avez été rejeté par une partie de la communauté qui ne croyait pas en ce que vous alliez faire parce qu'ils croyaient que c'était juste une histoire de fond et non une histoire d'aider les gens, de révéler les potentiels. Et deuxièmement, ce que je vais dire, c'est par rapport à crois-tu sincèrement que il y a un potentiel assez grand qui nous permettra d'aboutir à quelque chose de grand dans notre communauté parce que nous sommes en train de penser beaucoup, nous sommes en train de réfléchir sur une maquette assez grande. Il y a des gens qui parlent ici d'un centre communautaire. Il y a beaucoup de projets comme ça, mais pragmatiquement parlant, si on doit être pragmatique et qu'on doit dire qu'on sorte un peu des théories et pratiquement quel était le chemin que vous avez mené jusqu'à à accomplir ou à réaliser ce que vous avez pu réaliser. Ça, c'était mes deux questions et je vais finir par un compliment. C'est très bien ce que vous faites pour la communauté et je pense que c'est très important qu'il y ait de plus en plus de visages comme ça, non seulement des hommes, mais aussi des femmes qui peuvent influencer et aider d'autres jeunes à se développer, à croire en eux-mêmes. Et je pense que c'est quelque chose qui est très grand de voir qu'il y a une Africaine, il y a une femme noire qui parle de ces choses. Et je pense que ça va arriver plusieurs jeunes aussi qui croiront en la vision de je peux aussi faire quelque chose dans ma communauté, je peux aussi apporter une pierre dans ma communauté. Donc, félicitations pour ce que vous êtes en train de faire. Telles étaient mes deux questions.
Awesome. So he started out by congratulating you, saying it's a great presentation you did. Not only a great presentation, but to see a face like yours in the community doing this kind of work, it's going to have a big impact by people looking towards you. For those of you guys who don't know, Ethiopia also has a female president. You know that? Like they're one of those who has a female president. So the leadership on the female side, definitely you are representing it in that. Like with the caliber of the presentation you put in, he says that it's one of the big things that kind of impacted him there. He just wanted to just re-emphasize a lot of the things that you were talking about when we're going through the actual strategic planning process. You have to go through visioning, you got to go through things deeply. And even sometimes when you're going through the vision, there's aspects of it that can be paradoxical. I think the word that you try to use, like if like, okay, we're at a point now where we're going to have to start at the end in order to make things progress further. And there's a lot of ways that you end up having to do it. So he wants to know from your experience and having to in like a practical sense, like in a real sense, having to develop a strategic plan, how are you able to get people to believe in that vision and get past a lot of the haters in the community? Because he says, obviously, you must have had community support, but then there also must have been people in the background saying you're only doing this for funding purposes or for what other reasons. So in the sense where you had to do some of this work, how did you get past kind of that obstacle there? And the second point of his question was right now where we're talking about putting together decently big things for the community, or some of the ideas we're putting there are like big. We don't know how we're actually gonna reach those goals. So he wants to know, according to like something you had put maybe in a strategic plan, maybe something bigger, like one of like the bigger goals you guys were able to achieve. Like, how were you guys actually able to achieve that? So maybe talking like not just the strategic plan, but some more of the practical action steps that needed to be taken. This guy, he asked such profound
I was like, can you repeat
yeah.
question one? Because I remember, but if I'm missing a point, please feel free to interrupt me and remind me, because I got all of it, but I may have missed some points. So first of all, thank you so much, Daniel, for such in-depth analysis of my presentation. I appreciate it. I put a lot of time and effort into it. I think the first question was in regards to, again, the whole starting at the end and vision, all of that, right? So on a very practical sense, for me, the way that I've created programs, I've launched things, and I've even done it for when I worked for Ernst & Young, and I started off the Black Professional Network. Again, it was like, I started off with the end goal, right? What is my end goal, right? And so I was hoping that we would be able to use an example that you guys have, but let's say if the end goal is to have a community center that is thriving, that is fully staffed, and that has all these things. I'm just going to use that example. If that is the end goal, is that we want to have a community center that's actually flourishing, then what we have to do is, number one, what does a community center need? And asking yourself questions to get there. What do we need? So sometimes you need people, right? We always say the first thing we need is money. No. The first thing you need is people. You need people that are going to be dedicated to the vision, right? And then that goes back again. You guys should have a solid vision before we start working on it. And so on a very practical scale, if we're talking, let's say we want a community center, we need to get people who are going to be allocated. So even creating subcommittees within your groups of teams. Let's say we have a finance team. Their job is to do research on finance, research on grants, and to figure that out. And then you have another subcommittee that is more focused on program development, and that's their job. And so every time that your team comes together, I can say, okay, finance team, what have you accomplished in the last 3 weeks? This team, what have you done in 3 weeks? So what I have done is that I've divided up my team into subcategories, into subcommittees, and played off their strengths. Because if you actually want to go further, sometimes coming together, all 25 people giving opinions and saying, let's do this, you're just like, oh my gosh, it's crazy, right? Get organized, right? So number one is like to get organized. Plan monthly meetings on a bigger scale, but have more regular meetings on a smaller scale. So if you are going to have subcommittees of people that are going to be specialized in something, you put those two people together. And so it's their responsibility to check. So you can utilize a platform like Trello to actually plan out who's doing what. So task allocation, right? Even when you're planning, it's really important. So what I've done was, on a very practical scale, when we did the Emerging Youth Leaders program, which is one of our successful programs, was that we went back and we said, okay, what did we miss? And so we had a team of people that did an assessment based on what we missed, right? They were getting the feedback forms, they were looking through our data, and another team member was working on developing the program. So me and Dr. Ephraim, we were responsible for creating the program and actually refining it, because we did the pilot program. So we took that and we refined it. But another part of our team, what we did was we had them responsible for advertising. And so an advertisement and getting the information out to the community. This is all simultaneously happening, right? And our plan was that we're going to launch this June of 2018. That was the plan. So the 6 months leading up to that, so when we're working backwards, if the end goal is that we're going to launch in June, 6 months before June, that's January, what do we need to have done by then? Okay, so we wrote that down. Okay, 3 months before that, what are the things that we needed? So a year ahead of basically the program being launched, what are all the things that are necessary and put in place? Even if that means we have to put up flyers on every community convenience store, every ethnic food place, every restaurant, just getting the information out there. Like, it's just basically like, that is the things that we did. So on a very practical scale is actually like having regular meetings, jotting down every idea that you have, but refining it, right, into categories. And so I think having a vision first is really going to help you think about all those other details. The other question in regards to dealing with like challenges and haters and stuff like that, that's going to happen. I also will say that imitation is a great form of flattery. So there's been people who have, our people, they love to just replicate. And so you can take the vision and say, hey, we want to start it off too. And so we've had a lot of people try to replicate it, but I mean, and it has been successful for them, and then like good for them, right? But how we have handled it has been, we have the manpower and the vision, right? And it's intellectual property. So even if people try to replicate a program, it's not going to be the same thing, is because the secret sauce is that we have the vision and very specific information. So we have copyrighted our information, so it cannot be replicated. So even legally, we have done those things, if that makes sense. So that's been one of the things that we have done. And also, people are going to talk, but what we believe in is that we let the work speak for us, right? So that's the priority. It's like you don't get caught up in the rumor. You just produce the work. So I never engage in it, and yeah, so we just continue to keep doing the work. It's hard, obviously. It's a lot of work. Like I'm doing all this for free, like while I'm doing all these other things that I'm working on. And yeah, but it's not impossible. So I think I apologize if maybe the whole like start at the end confused everybody. But what I was trying to say is like, once you have the vision, and if that's to empower and to educate and to uplift our youth, okay, what does that look like? And then starting there, and then making a short-term plan from that point forward, moving it backwards. That way it actually gives you time to breathe and say, okay, we don't have to like be super successful today. We have time. Let's give ourselves a realistic timeline of when we want our first big launch to be, right? So I don't know if I probably missed a question, Daniel. So Ike, if you can repeat one of them.
Daniel, est-ce qu'elle a répondu aux questions ou bien elle a manqué un aspect ou bien la réponse suffit?
Elle a totalement répondu, et j'aimerais juste ajouter en disant que quand elle a parlé de commencer par la fin, ça n'a pas confus des gens, mais je voulais plus de clarification parce que c'est une très bonne idée qui nous aide, par exemple, dans tous les projets. J'aimerais ici exhorter même les autres jeunes, il faut toujours se projeter, ça s'appelle la projection, voir ce que la fin sera avant de commencer. Parce que quand tu vois comment est-ce que la fin sera avant de commencer, tu te donnes l'énergie, le temps qu'il faut pour travailler, parce que tu as déjà vu le fruit même avant de commencer à travailler. Pourquoi on garde les arbres de mangue dans nos parcelles? Par exemple, en Afrique, on plante des arbres parce qu'on voit les fruits avant même de planter l'arbre. Donc, c'est une très bonne idée. Je pense que nous allons l'appliquer dans tous les domaines. Ça part dans les domaines de l'entrepreneuriat, leadership et tout ce qui va avec. C'est très important, et je pense que ça a apporté un shift dans notre manière de réfléchir.
No, he was saying that you answered the questions well. We weren't confused with the starting at the end piece. He just thought that it was profound. Wanted some a deeper detail about that, and wants to see how. And he's not wants to see is kind of telling the group as well that this is a concept and a principle that can be applied in a lot of places. So it's important to project out and see the finish kind of before, like in kind of a lot of settings. It's an old African proverb, or maybe not a proverb, but it's just something that we do in Africa, where we plant the trees, but we see the fruit of the trees going to produce before, like we see the tree itself. So you just wanted to really back everything up there. So before we pass it over to Papa Ndemi to close, we thank Giftii for giving us this extra time as well. We're going a little bit over time. So we're going to try to wrap it up. What I did is I sent you guys the links to the article about the two kingdoms. It's a JSTOR article. You can click it easy. You can get a free subscription. Like I think it's $100 a month. If you're not part of a school, you can still kind of read that. Great resource, talking still in that space of change leadership versus change management. There's a lot of things to pull out from there for anybody who has time to read that. a little bit extra. I want to thank you guys for being present. We're only missing 3 today, which is pretty good for a holiday. And everybody who was missing told me ahead of time that they'd be gone. So that's really good. We're going to be starting some of the strategic planning sessions properly Friday. We're going to be breaking out into breakout rooms and stuff like that. So please try to be present. We're going to try to have committees working on different aspects of things. So attendance is going to be pretty important starting Friday. I did call most of you guys, haven't reached all you guys yet, but most of you guys, we talked about how we were going to be moving on further into March with the anti-racism training, starting with Ambrose and then implementing some of the strategic planning, some of the strategic plan, like the parts of it that are ready to start implementing, we're going to start. It's not like a hard deadline that we have to. But yeah, for those who haven't reached, look out for that call from me. Read the extra documentation. And I do believe that's it for announcements and stuff. So we'll just pass it over to Papa Ndembe now, who's going to just close everything up for us. And yeah, we'll see you guys Friday.
Well, I'm not closing everything. I think you have already closed, and we got really what you got. But let me just say this thing to my sister Girma. That was a really brilliant kind of presentation that you've given to us, and especially you. It is practical, and then it really made more sense to me. And even in that concept of the goal, and I was just nodding my hand. Yeah, yes, yes, yes. Like those who talk for me, they say, no, we are not really confused, but it is really a concept that sometimes we don't consider, especially if we come to the education kind of perspective, you'll understand that when you set a goal, you want to see the outcome. So what is going to be? So you need to visualize the end of it, and that gives you the incentive. It gives you the also, yes, I want to attain that goal, and it is good. And like also said, that if you want to, from one distance to the end, that's your vision. But how you're going to get there, you have to get steps. So really, very, very good. And I will also say it's good to hear you, especially with experience. We come with experience. And one of the concern was, I think it's maybe Mwamba said that what shows that are we going to succeed? Is there any hope for us? I tell you, Girma, you did not just bring a speech or a presentation, but you brought hope. To when I saw the thing, there's a hope. So that means that we can make it. Yes. It is possible. The way seeing you talking and the way you present the thing, and say, wow, there's hope. There's hope. And I was pondering on your name, Girma, and say, this is going to be another president from Ethiopia because they had already Girma as a president.
Yeah, the last president was Girma, you're right.
So it's good to hear you, and also you start a community. I know about the vision, what I've seen so far. We are coming to a vision because we have so far in our meetings, we have assessed our needs, the needs that we have. I think it is going to bring us to a clear vision, which I see it has already started because we want to be a community, because we are not really a community yet, but I can see the sense of a community. So we are getting there. And I will ask Ike, this should not be the last, the first and the last presentation you've done. Please, we're going to dig on your mind, and I will be very happy to see you again coming and talk. And what you've given to us is really good. We need to work on that. So it's to say thank you, and also to say to the whole group, the question we've asked, and that means really there's a need, there's a concern, and we want to take part of that. Let me just say that thank you. That's what I will say. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much for your feedback.
Yeah.
Masaganadlo.
Minimadellem.
Awesome.
Geraldine.
That's the stuff I cannot translate. So we're gonna...
No, I just told him thank you, and he said no problem in Amharic. So
Awesome. Everybody thank Giftii one last time. It was great. And then
thanks, guys. Feel free
Hey,
to connect with
Girma,
me
I
if
would
you have
like
any
to
other
have
questions.
like to have your contact.
Yeah,
And
you guys can, my first last name, if you Google it,
yeah,
everything comes up. So
yeah,
Facebook, Instagram,
because
website.
you look like a lady I've seen in Ethiopia a long time.
I think I remember are you Thora's dad, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we were in Ethiopia in 2010. I don't know if your family was there, but I know I met your son and I met Thora and there was a bunch of
David,
you guys in
you met
Addis.
David. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you sister to
Nafgot.
Nafgot? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
world
and she
is
worked for the
very, very
African Union. So yeah.
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 The world is very short.
Small world.
Small world.
All right, guys.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you so much for having me again. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah. Okay. I thank you.
No problem. Bye, Papa.
Yeah. Bye.